Welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. So if you're a Minnesota sports fan, please click that like button on this video and also subscribe to our channel to hear more Minnesota sports conversations. Today we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves because why not? The Timberwolves are fun to talk about, and we're going to be talking about why the national media seems to be sleeping on the Timberwolves. It doesn't really matter what the subject is, whether it's playoff odds or NBA Finals odds, or just talking points in general about who had the best offseason, who had the worst offseason. It seems like none of these national outlets are giving the Timberwolves a whole lot of love here for the offseason they've had. Granted, they gave away a lot in the Rudy Gobert trade, but they also added solid pieces in Kyle Anderson. Austin Rivers, I think, is a very solid third point guard to have. Bryn Forbes as well as a sharpshooter. So, why do you think the Wolves are being slept on here, Liberta?
Yeah, I think it's a variety of factors. I think there's still that stigma out there that's like it's the Wolves, so it's like you can't take them too seriously at this point. I know all the internal hype and around the Twin Cities with all the team reporters, beat writers, and all the fans. I feel like everybody's really bought into this team. Like this is going to be a special season, kind of building off what we started last year. But yeah, like when you kind of venture out and seeking national opinion and hearing what people think about the Timberwolves, it seems quite there seems to be quite a disparity there. And I think the one thing everybody seems to agree on though is the hype for Ant. I don't think obviously the hype for Ant in Minnesota is a lot bigger than anywhere else, but I think more and more people are starting to recognize how special of a player he's going to turn into or has the ability the potential to turn into. So it's just like he's a guy a lot of people, whether you're a Wolves fan or not, like to build your franchise around. But beyond that, there's kind of less respect, especially for like when you talk about Cat. I feel like Cat definitely gets a lot of flack when I mean sometimes it is warranted, is necessary a little bit, but like a lot of it is kind of just uncalled for and just kind of dogging him when he shouldn't he shouldn't be getting just drugged through the mud, I guess, because like he's a loyal soldier. Really, he's been here through it all for the Wolves. So like I think it's time to give him some love. And this guy has been an all-star multiple times. He's been all NBA multiple times. Like he just got the Supermax extension. So like this guy's legit. And then you consider Rudy Gobert, and we have a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. And then you got D'Lo, former All-Star point guard, and like I said, Ant butting into his own superstardom. And then you also have Jaden McDaniels, who's literally the fifth guy on the starting five, and there's a lot of hope for him. And it's one of the big wins of the Gobert trade too was being able to keep him without and still bringing in Gobert. So I would say when you look at our team from a Wolves lens, I guess it's like there's a lot of excitement, but I think outside of Minnesota, they're just like they look at the fact that the Wolves are the Wolves, and they've had in 33 seasons as a franchise 4 50-win seasons, and there's only been one of those years out of 33 where we've won a playoff series. So like I think I kind of get that too. Like we kind of got to earn it, but at the same time, like in preseason odds, whether like you said, whether it's like making the playoffs, making the NBA Finals, or it's even like power rankings by all the ESPN pundits, like we're still unanimously like the 7th team in the West. Like, are you really saying that we're not better than we were last year? Like that's where we ended up last year, and I feel like we only got better this offseason on paper, I guess. But still, and it's like we're still being put below teams like, let's say the Nuggets, for instance. Like, what have the Nuggets done to be definitively better than us, according to basically everybody out there? Like, I know that they made the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago. It was the Mickey Mouse playoffs, though. And then you consider Nikola Jokic, multiple-time MVP, but it's like, what have they really done with that? So it's like, why are they just above us and basically everywhere I look? I don't know. I guess I just don't understand that. Like there's the factor the Wolves are the Wolves, but still it's like this team should be getting more love than it is right now. I don't know. What are you thinking, Bailey?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it's just the lazy Timberwolves are the Timberwolves take. And yeah, it was a cute story. They made the playoffs last year, but they got bounced in the first round. So, they were only exposed nationally for a few games, and then they were out of the playoffs. So I think if they can get back in there again this year, make more of a run, obviously the more national TV games will help too. But you got 4, all-star potential players, and I think Jaden McDaniels could eventually get there as well. So, this team is loaded with top-end talent, and then the bench is not bad yet either. You got Jalen Noel, who I think is, budding into his own. He could honestly contend for 6th man of the year, I think. Given just that he's going to have much more opportunity this year. Jordan McLaughlin was a fantastic point guard off the bench last year. He really made the offense hum when he was in there with the ball movement and the pace. Obviously, Kyle Anderson is a solid vet to have. He can basically play point guard if you want him to, but he's basically a small forward. Um, he can defend multiple positions. He's long. He's got good length. So I think that defensive versatility is going to be fantastic. You still got Torian Prince, maybe, depending on what his situation is. He was a solid vet for us last year, and obviously he can, space out and hit some threes. And then you still got Naz Reid, who is, he's gotten better every single year he's been in the NBA. And that's not to mention guys like Austin Rivers, Bryn Forbes, guys that are going to be towards the end of the bench, plus the 2 promising rookies we drafted as well. So, we really don't have a shortage of talent on this team. In fact, we don't have enough roster spots for all these guys to get good minutes in the NBA. So that's a good problem to have. Another lazy take I think people have had is that, well, how the heck are you going to, pay 2 centers max contracts and play them next to each other? And I think the problem with that is, Cat is not a true center. Like, he's played center for the Timberwolves, but he's also, over the last couple of years, he's lost weight. He's kind of trained more to being able to drive to the basket rather than, sit down low and post up. So Cat very much has a power forward type game, almost a small forward even, if you will, type game, more so now, and especially spacing out to hit 3-pointers within the last several years as well. His 3-point shots really improved. He even won the 3-point contest last year. So it's like, he's really changed his game to be more of an outside game, which we kind of saw with Kevin Love as well, although Kevin Love could not ball handle like Cat does and drive to the lane. But Kevin Love evolved his game over time, and Cat has certainly evolved his game to where he can definitely play more of a role at power forward. I mean, it's going to look clunky for a little bit between Cat and Gobert. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some spacing issues to start, but I mean, I don't see how this couldn't work when Cat's strength, by far is his offense, and his weakness is more so on the defensive end of the floor, whereas Gobert is the complete opposite. So I think they'll be able to help each other in both regards. And I think people haven't really given that much thought of, rather than, how are you going to play 2 centers together? Well, I think it can work just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people got to trust Finch too. I know he's a
Yes.
relatively unknown commodity to people outside Minnesota. Like, he's only been a head coach for a little over a year, basically, because he had the couple months at the end of the 2020-2021 season, and then
Yeah.
obviously had the full 21-22 campaign, and like he did really well. And like, he's already, I mean, that's, in a way, it's kind of testament to how bad our history is, but like, he's already the second winningest coach in franchise history. So like, this guy knows how to do it. Like, he's coming and winning in a place where basically that has not been the case for anybody else outside of Flip Saunders. So like, that's significant. And then you consider his history with being able to play like in Denver. They had early years of Jokic and Nurkic who played together, and then he went to New Orleans, and he was part of having Cousins and AD play together pretty well. So it's like he's done this before. So like, I think you just got to trust him, be able to build it out into something that's going to win a lot of games. So I think another critical part to this too is that being able to play Cat at the 4 is going to be more of an advantage, like you said, than I think people are realizing, because he's just this guy that not a lot of people can match up with. He's just an excellent perimeter shooter, and I think this is going to keep him out of situations where he's picking up a lot of offensive fouls, which is going to keep him on the floor, and that's going to help our team a lot, because obviously that's a huge difference maker for us. So I think there's a lot of good things to consider here. I get the downsides of like, maybe it's going to look a little rough defensively, but it's like, yeah, Rudy Gobert is your fallback option on the inside, and then you also have other, like, I think a good team-minded defense. At least that's what was shown last year. And if you can build off that, I think that's going to make this team look really good both ways. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. I know it's not really been done before over like a sustained stretch, because I know like the 2 examples I brought up were only prevalent for like a year, but still, like, I think this can work, and I think our front office is fully convinced of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made this move. So I think there's just a lot to like here, and I think we're gonna be a team that nobody's really gonna be ready for. So I'm excited.
Yeah, you brought up the front office. I think, in Chris Finch we trust, and in Tim Connolly we trust, because, I mean, he came over from Denver. He's coming in with fresh eyes. He talked obviously with the coaching staff and the people that were already in place here, like Sachin Gupta. A guy like that who's run a very successful franchise in Denver came over and basically decided, hey, this team did not rebound well last year. They weren't, they were missing some things defensively in terms of size. So he identified Rudy Gobert, and he was basically the number one target on the Wolves board going into this offseason. I mean, if he's that confident in Rudy Gobert making that much of a difference for the Wolves, and I trust it because I mean it was obvious to most of us who were watching games last year the struggle they had rebounding. Cat was the biggest player on the team, and like Jake McDaniels is taller than Cat. At least it appears. Like Cat's obviously not beefy like a Joel Embiid or Jokic, so it's like you know you need a little more beef at center, and we got that this year. And then you had guys like Kyle Anderson, who's tenacious on defense, gives you a little more size. I mean, I just keep imagining having Ant and Jaden McDaniels on the outside with their length, guarding on-ball defenders, and then if those guys somehow get by them, you got Rudy Gobert waiting there for you at the basket. So it's like the switching and stuff on this team, I think is gonna be crazy too, because I think it'll all kind of happen around Gobert, and then Gobert will kind of stay down low. I'll be really curious how Chris Finch kind of hashes everything out both offensively and defensively, because I think there's going to be, I think this team's going to look, quite different offensively and defensively from last year even.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be quite a bit different because obviously we were very size challenged, as you mentioned, last year when you had Cat, and that was kind of basically it because like our backup center was Nas, and Nas isn't big in his own right. He's like a 6'8" center or something like that. So like he doesn't have a ton of size to him. Then beyond that, like you said, Jaden McDaniels, but obviously he doesn't have much beef to him. So it's like he's really a 3. So that was lacking. But now we've acquired Gobert, and now you look at a starting 5 where everybody's just super lengthy. So like there's going to be quite the opposite. And I know this, I think what kind of makes me a little sad is that I think we're going to play with a lot less pace this year because I think we got up and down the floor like nobody's business last year. It was incredible. I mean, we averaged more points per game than anybody in the league, and I think we made more threes than anybody in the league. And we were turnover machines or forcing turnover machines. So we crashed the offensive glass actually pretty well for being an undersized team. But as far as defensive rebounding, we just got killed. So like that's going to help with Gobert. But obviously when you improve somewhere, usually you have to give up somewhere, but hopefully that'll just make us more an efficient team. So we're still scoring a lot of points, but just maybe not quite so, I guess, in spurts, maybe. I don't know. So it'll feel more consistent, I guess. But I think, it'll still be fine. I think Gobert just makes a top 10 defense and then be able to, with everybody else, supplement on offense, being able to do a lot of different things. I think all these guys like Hant, obviously, first and foremost, is going to continue to get better. I mean, everybody sees his off-season workout videos where he's just cashing threes right and left. Like, obviously, that's going to help. And then hopefully D'Lo is just going to play out his mind in a contract year because he wants to get his next bag. And then you got McDaniels again getting better on his own too. And then Cat coming off an All-NBA season. So it's like there's a lot to like here. And I think, going back to the conversation we started here, it's just that I don't think the national media recognizes it yet, but I think they soon will.
Yes, and that's going to be my final question here before we take off. Do you think by the end of this next season, the Wolves will be held in regard in some of the, with some of the other top teams in the NBA?
Yes, I think they'll be viewed upon as at least a top 4 team in the West. And as far as the NBA goes, like the whole landscape, I think for sure we'll be viewed as a top 10 team. I know that's not much different from where we're at right now. Like, for instance, you go look at the ESPN power rankings right now, like they have us at 12. So like that's not a significant improvement, but I feel like there's such a difference between being considered like a top 10 team, like that's legit. So it's like, I know that there's a lot of good teams there at the top, but it's like, I kind of feel like we're going into one of them where we're like probably for sure top 10, if not top 8, maybe if we put all the pieces together sooner than we think, maybe a top 5 team, dare I say. But I think the sky's the limit here. And plus, it's not like it's just going to be this one year. I mean, granted, the D'Lo situation is interesting, but like I think having Ant, Cat, and Gobert for the foreseeable future, like this is going to consistently put us in this conversation, not just for one season.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. I think once you get into that top 10 realm, then, the championship talk kind of picks up.
Exactly.
Competing for, Western Conference Championship, stuff like that, where, if you can win a playoff series, get deep into the playoffs. And I think Ant's going to be on a whole nother level this year, man. I think he's been working all summer. That playoff loss, I think, really fueled him. Not to say that these other guys haven't been working, but I don't know if anyone's been working harder than Ant. So I'm really excited to see his growth in year 3. And I'm just excited for Timberwolves basketball, man. I think training camp is going to get going within a month here. And then before you know it, they'll be playing some preseason games, and then it'll be time to go for regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious too. We kind of went over basically running the roster in this
Right.
discussion. That's another thing that intrigues me that we'll have to talk about in a future episode is what these rotations are really going to look like, because I think there's a
Yes.
lot of guys that could get some minutes and would be deservedly so. So I mean, kind of depends how Finch wants to roll with this. I know last year we went pretty deep,
Hmm.
pretty often, and I know there's going to be injuries, which I mean feels like we got depth and feels like we can kind of sustain and hold over during those periods. But yeah, I'm curious, especially at the beginning when everybody should be healthy relatively, that
Yes.
what that's going to look like as far as minutes distribution goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. But we'll leave it there for now, and that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video, and also feel free to subscribe to our channel. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Why do you think the Timberwolves are being slept on by the national media? What things do you think are going unnoticed in terms of things that could go really well for this team? And what are you most excited about as the season is approaching here? So until next time, thanks for watching.